Hello and welcome back. Today, something a little different here. I'll be watching and reacting to, as an American, America Compared. Why other countries treat their people so much better. So I've done videos about the NHS, universal healthcare around the world. There are prisons in Nordic states that do a fantastic job at rehabilitation for their inmates, general rules and laws around the world that make sense. And this should touch upon some of those points, and I'm very curious to see what this list has to say, and I'll give you my honest opinion about what I think, and generally America, as putting them into one group, think of these topics as well. I'll try to give you a good flavor of that. So let's just jump into this and let's see why other countries treat their people so much better than the US. I'm sure we could build a list right now, right off the bat.
Going to say something that will probably offend many of my viewers. Let me preface this by saying that I, as an American, include myself in the following statement. Americans are quite possibly the most willfully ignorant people on the face of the planet. We have access to the sum total of all human knowledge, yet our understanding of the world rarely extends beyond our own country. And even then, the majority of Americans believe in a vision of the country that does not actually exist. It's not that we're stupid, we just tend to blindly accept that the US is the greatest place on Earth, and therefore don't see any reason to educate ourselves about the realities of the rest of the world. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how America actually compares to other countries. And
generally, I think that's true. We will blindly look at all of the stuff that we have in the US and just assume it's bigger and better. Often it's bigger, not often it's better. At least that's my honest opinion. So yeah, good start.
And consider why the richest country on Earth fails to treat its people with dignity and fairness. I'm going to provide a list of important topics, then for each item we'll compare the American experience with that of citizens from other nations. Hopefully by providing a side-by-side comparison, you'll be able to see the stark contrast between how most Americans see their country and how it really stacks up against the competition. To give you an idea of just how skewed the American perception of our country really is, let's start with a pretty shocking example. Compensation for what are considered low-skilled jobs. We'll take the quintessential American company, McDonald's. McDonald's is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue. It operates in over 100 countries and serves over 69 million customers every day. As of 2018, McDonald's was the second largest private employer, with 1.7 million employees, behind Walmart's 2.3 million. How many times have you heard someone refer to McDonald's jobs or workers in a derogatory manner? For some reason, people who work at McDonald's are seen as inferior or lazy or have any number of other unfair and unkind assessments leveled at them. This probably stems from the old notion of flipping burgers being a job anyone can perform. But the animosity towards low-wage workers has grown.
That's very common here. Flipping burgers is a big thing. You would mention that. At least the Americans kind of know what he's talking about here.
Significantly in the past few decades. And in America, McDonald's workers really do suffer a low wage. As of 2020, the average crew member at McDonald's makes $9 per hour. The average McDonald's cashier makes $8 per hour. The federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.25, a rate which has not been raised in over a decade, and which should not be considered a reasonable wage for any position, considering the fact that a full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford to rent a two-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States.
I don't know what it is in California. Maybe I'll put a little chart on here, but it's probably around $12 to $13 now for a minimum wage.
And can't afford a one-bedroom apartment in over 95% of US counties. Now, the all-too-common response to data like this is something like, well, yeah, it's not a hard job, you should just find a better one. Here's a simple question. Should any job, regardless of technical skill required, pay workers so little that they cannot afford to rent even the smallest place to live? Not to mention other necessities like utilities, food, and medicine. Absolutely not. That is inhumane and cruel, especially coming from the second largest employer in the richest country on the planet. Other notable objections include, McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story. But again, McDonald's is not struggling to make ends meet. In 2019, McDonald's raked in $21 billion in revenue. But no matter how obvious the exploitation of low-wage workers, Americans are hell-bent on praising the very companies doing the exploiting. Take this article on Reader's Digest, for example. It's titled, "This is what McDonald's workers really get paid." You see that and think, oh, nice. Finally some news showing how poorly these workers are compensated. Then you scroll down and nope, they're actually praising McDonald's, saying things like, the food chain is also great for paying their workers fairly, and McDonald's is one of the highest paying fast food chains in the United States. This level of sycophancy is insane. If $8 or $9 an hour is some of the highest pay in the industry, that doesn't indicate that McDonald's is paying fairly, it indicates that a massive chunk of the population is being paid poverty wages. This is where taking an international perspective is so critical. If all you see is feel-good stories about how well McDonald's workers are paid, you'll never know how badly American workers are actually being treated. Let's take the same company, the same position, but in a different country. Here's a McDonald's in Denmark. The average McDonald's worker in Denmark, for doing the same low-skill job, makes $22 per hour. Well, hold on, you hear Reader's Digest scream from across the Atlantic. McDonald's workers in America get paid vacation days after just a year of work. Wow, enticing. In Denmark, when you're hired at McDonald's, not only are you making nearly 3 times what you would make in an American Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and a pension. No slaving away for a year to prove your value to the company. You're hired and you're treated fairly. Simple as that. McDonald's can afford to compensate all their workers like this, but they won't, because US laws allow them to exploit American workers to the point where they're basically slaves, earning the bare minimum to survive, paying all of their income and often going into debt just to pay rent, and having no way to escape this vicious cycle because they're working such long hours. This is the case across all of America's low-wage jobs, of which there are many. The plight of the low-wage worker is incredibly dire, and all you have to do to understand that is look at how those same workers are treated in other wealthy countries.
I love the comparisons when they're discussing these topics. It's much more eye-opening when you can actually see these comparisons between, Denmark and the US, and I'd like to know between the UK how it is and other places of the world, really. And it would be extra interesting to see McDonald's and their profit margins in Denmark compared to the US and how they fare. $22 an hour, that's, I don't know what it is, 40 something thousand a year. Way more reasonable than, what was it, $725? Very low. Very, very low.
Let's move on to another topic, work-life balance. Fair wages are definitely part of this equation. If you're paid fairly, you don't need to work a second job, which will free up your time to be spent elsewhere. But we're going to focus on other metrics, specifically the length of the work week, vacation time, and parental leave. Let's start with the US.
Let's not start with the US. I know how bad this is going to be. I've known people from other places of the world, and it is well known here that we are workaholics in the US. We don't get time off. My first professional job out of college, having 2 weeks off the first year that I worked, well, I had to build that up, but I build up 2 weeks. Everyone starts with 0 days off. You can't just start on a job and a month later take a day off, not even a day off. You need to build those 2 weeks up throughout the whole year. So half a year's gone and you have 1 week saved up. Then the last half of the year, you have another week saved up. And then I was considered extra lucky for getting 3 weeks off in only my second year, which a lot of times that's in year 5 plus, like 5 and on, you get 3 weeks off. And that's kind of a lot of times where it stops. Maybe it goes to 4 weeks for the higher ups. And this varies massively, but that is generally what I've known in at least the business world. So then when you are on vacation, you can't really fully relax. You don't have much time off.
Most Americans would say that 40 hours per week is full-time. That seems to be the general consensus. But, in keeping with the country's exploitative labor practices, the hilariously named Fair Labor Standards Act does not actually define what qualifies as full-time. That's left up to the employer. Okay, why does this matter? Well, think of your past part-time jobs. Did you get any benefits? Healthcare, 401k? Probably not. Most benefits, when they're offered at all, are reserved for full-time employees. Companies don't want to provide benefits because they affect their bottom line. America is all about cutting costs, and providing workers with fair compensation is a cost. So, imagine you apply for a full-time job at Best Buy. You're offered the job, but they tell you they only have part-time positions, but they can give you almost full-time. They make it sound like they're doing you a favor, offering you more hours than normal part-time. But this is just another example of employers exploiting their workers. If you work 37 hours per week, you're essentially a full-time employee, but they don't have to provide you any sort of benefits. No healthcare, no vacation, nothing. This is a common practice. Companies will hire people, but keep them just below the threshold for full-time to avoid providing fair compensation. I've seen it happen. I used to work at Best Buy and they would do it all the time. And that's just the companies who are still trying to appear generous. Others will simply not offer benefits at all, or set their full-time positions at 50 or 60 hours per week.
It's actually pretty nice when we hear of companies. I think it's Starbucks, we have In-N-Out if you heard of it, maybe Costco, I'm not sure about them. But certain places are known for, if you have a job there, or if you're in college and you have a job there, those places are better to get a job, I guess you could say, because they do have a certain degree of benefits, which is rare. Like this video is saying, this video is very, very spot on. The hole's getting dug.
Sales positions are notorious for this. They'll often say, well, we expect you to work 40 hours, but all the top sellers are working 60 to 70 hours per week. This is coercion. They're trying to pressure you into working more hours to benefit them, and the compensation is never what they claim it will be. By allowing employers to define full-time work, American workers are held captive by corporations, forced to either work absurd hours to qualify for full-time benefits or find a second job to help cover the cost of things like health insurance. Both of these options lead to a terrible work-life balance, and as real wages have decreased and benefits have been offered less and less over the years, huge numbers of American workers have developed an unhealthy work-life balance. For example, in 1960, when workers had real bargaining power, only 20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of children live in households where both parents are working full-time. Where does all this lead? As of 2020, over 85% of American men and 66% of women work more than 40 hours per week. We work 137 more hours per year than Japanese workers, 260 more than the British, and 499 more hours per year than the French.
I'm not surprised. I am not surprised in the least. It's not uncommon to get off your job and then you go to another job or have some other gig on the weekend or late at nights. It's not, I wouldn't say it's common, but you do, it is kind of common in some areas. And I do know a few people that do pick up second jobs. Plus housing here is pretty insane. I think it is, in the UK as well. Honestly, if I do want to live here, I might need 2 jobs. It's just that crazy.
Why do other countries have such a better balance? Because many of them have laws that cap the length of the full-time work week. Companies are required to pay their workers fairly and allow enough time off for employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's not the case in the US. Vacation time is a similar story. Whereas many other countries mandate that employers provide paid vacation and sick days, the US does not. In every industrialized nation, workers get more paid vacation days and holidays than in the US. Here's a depressing graph to illustrate just how poorly we treat our workers. France 31, Spain 34, Austria 38, America 0.
Unfortunately, this does not surprise me once again. Nothing, this is all just stuff that I grew up with. I knew was normal for everyone here. It's crazy, crazy different.
0 paid vacation days, 0 paid holidays. And remember, these are the mandated figures. Every Austrian worker gets a minimum of 38 paid days off per year. Even in the worst possible employment situation, they'd still get 38 paid days off. In the US, many workers are lucky to get Christmas or Thanksgiving off at all. And the odds that it's a paid holiday? Next to 0. Let's move on to our final comparison, paid parental leave.
My experience is when I went once again to my first professional job, we did have, I forget what it was, 11 paid holidays or 9 paid holidays. That was pretty normal. I think it was maybe a little bit on the better side. Some people have Christmas Eve as a half day. I was lucky enough to have Christmas Eve off and Christmas Day off. Everyone has Christmas Day off, for the most part. A lot of stuff is open on those huge holidays. They do offer holiday pay, which is, time and a half or double time sometimes, which is, I've done that before and it's kind of nice getting the paycheck, but also that's a part of the problem. So yeah, my experience.
Many Americans aren't even aware this is a thing, so let me explain. When an employee of a company has a child, sometimes they're offered parental leave, a period of time where they can stay home from work to bond with and take care of their new baby. This greatly benefits the employee, the child, and, in the long run, the company, because the employee will be happier, less stressed, and more loyal to the company. Of course, offering paid parental leave doesn't benefit corporations in the short term. And if there's one thing that encapsulates the American business philosophy, it's short-term gains over all else. So it won't surprise you to learn that the US is the only industrialized nation on the planet that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. This may be shocking to my American viewers because being able to get paid to spend time with your newborn child sounds like an impossible dream in our dystopian labor market. And honestly, it probably is impossible in our current America. We're so invested in self-destructive capitalism that even suggesting the possibility of paid parental leave would put US politicians out of a job. That's not the case in the rest of the industrialized world. In fact, every other OECD nation, and even in many third world countries, new parents are guaranteed at least several weeks of leave. Let's take a look at a few of them. Ethiopia, a country with an annual gross national income of under $900 per person, offers 90 days of leave with 100% pay. Madagascar, 14 weeks at 100%. Afghanistan, 90 days. Denmark, 52 weeks. Norway, 56 weeks. France, 16 weeks at 100% pay for your first child, up to 26 weeks for your third, on top of 104 unpaid weeks. Lithuania, 52 weeks at 100%, plus an additional 52 weeks at 80%.
This is all just showing and proving the point of this video time and time and time again, in a huge way too. This is our lives, our livelihoods, our free time, our health, our mental health, our physical health. This is absolutely why other countries treat their citizens better than the US. Very clear.
Again, the United States does not mandate a single day of paid parental leave even for the mother, and the father is never considered. This means that workers in America have to choose to either pay the exorbitant cost of childcare or have one parent quit their job in order to take care of the child. These are both bad options, which often lead to economic precarity. But that doesn't matter to the companies employing American workers. Profit is the only thing that matters. Hopefully, seeing these labor practices compared like this has made it clear that not only is the US not living up to its claim to being the greatest nation on Earth, but also that it consistently ranks poorly and often dead last in terms of labor metrics. Why is it that the wealthiest, most powerful nation on Earth can't pay their workers a fair wage, or provide healthcare, vacation time, or paid parental leave? You should realize by now that it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. Everything in America is beholden to the almighty dollar. Profit is the only motivator. If an action does not produce a greater profit, it will not be considered. Over the last few decades, Americans have watched as our livelihoods, our quality of life, and our dignity have all been stripped away by those who already make obscene amounts of money. Those in power say we're all in this together, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The ultra-wealthy and the world's largest corporations rely on Americans remaining ignorant. They rely on us accepting the lie that America is the greatest nation on Earth, that it couldn't possibly get any better. All you have to do to shatter that lie is to take a look around the world. Other nations take care of their citizens. Even impoverished nations, or nations that we've bombed into oblivion, take better care of their people than the US does. American workers need to relearn the language of class struggle and work together to break the wheel of the capitalist machine. If we want to claim that the United States is the greatest place on Earth, we need to make it that way.
Powerful video for a good reason. I mean, it should be talked about, discussed, starting to kind of push towards what other countries do. I mean, you've seen the videos that I've reacted to, and you know as well, just the universal healthcare. Absolutely not a thing here. He didn't even dive into the whole universal healthcare aspect of it, and many others that we talked about previously in other videos in the past. There was someone in my first job that was from somewhere in the UK, but she said when she got a job in the UK, she started, so it's something along the lines of she started with 2 weeks. Like, bam, you got a job, you have 2 weeks. Like, you can just take off 2 weeks. This is a huge one when it comes to the citizens and the people and their health, physically, mentally, their families, their time off, traveling, just to kind of decompress and come back recharged. And I do hope it gets better, but like he said as well, I really don't think it will, at least not anytime soon. It's all about the almighty dollar, profits. Let me know what your thoughts. I always find this very interesting and fascinating in your experiences or what your country does in these regards. How much time did you or do you have off for either vacation, for if you have a kid? I would like to know kind of your life, because then I could really much more get a better understanding of that, because he only mentioned Denmark once in the beginning about McDonald's, and I'd like to know places in the UK or other places in Europe, Asia, wherever you may live. So any detail will be fantastic. So thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll jump into more of these sad realities, maybe? I don't know if I want to. Thanks for watching, and have a good, healthy, vacation-y rest of your day.